Welcome everyone to our first official council meeting for this triennium. Could I welcome you all? We do have some apologies for lateness, but we'll get into those shortly. Could I ask, please, Councillor Tukapua, to start our meeting off? Thank you. Perry.
Tēnā koutou. Me noi tātou he honore, he kororia ki te atua, he mau ngā rongo ki te whenua, he whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Āmine. Honour, glory and peace, goodwill on earth, be compassionate to all people, forever. Amen.
Kia ora, thank you. So the first order of business today is for Councillor Proctor to take his oath as being the only councillor who unfortunately wasn't present at our first meeting of the year. So we're going to ask him to come forward, please.
I, Jonathan Noel Proctor, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Horowhenua District the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as Councillor of the Horowhenua District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 and any other act.
Easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
This one here. So, warm welcome to you all. Seems quite unusual, I suppose. The first thing to note is that we're meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning for this council is a bit of a different step. So, special warm welcome to new councillors and those returning councillors, to staff, to press and members of the gallery, and those watching online. Great to have you with us. We do have an apology for lateness from Councillor Jennings. He's being held up traffic-wise, would you believe, in Levin. And who else is I'm missing? Councillor Young, yes. I haven't heard from him as yet. So we'll just note those apologies at this stage. We do have one member of the public who wishes to present to us, and that is Mrs. Payton. Mrs. Payton, would you like to join the table, please? Welcome.
Welcome to you, and good morning, everybody. I'm hoping that this agenda with your standing orders in it is something that you will all keep very close to you. There's a lot of useful information in it, and I'm wondering if you would consider workshopping it for your councillors, especially your new ones. There's a lot to take on board. Just think about that. I have a question about item 5 in this agenda, which is confirmation of minutes. The question that still bothers me is why were those minutes not included in this agenda? Because it's only 2 pages, it wasn't going to take up a whole lot of paper. And how can you confirm something that you haven't been given the opportunity to read?
Can I just ask the Chief Executive may be able to respond to that for you, Mrs. Payton? Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, Mrs. Payton. Just if I could reassure you that all elected members received the minutes. I think your point, though, is that it's a separate document. It's not integrated into the agenda, and that's certainly some feedback we can take on board and see whether the system allows us to integrate the minutes into the one document.
Well, I think it was, thank you for that reply. I think it was particularly important for these minutes to be included because this states the positions that some councillors will be taking up through the next 3 years, and the public need to know that information and have it readily available. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, as the Chief Executive said, we'll welcome that feedback. Can I thank you too for being the first public person to participate in this new term, and we look forward to further seeing you at further meetings. Look, we have, especially with the extension of time between meetings, understand that we do need to get minutes of meetings up on the website as soon as possible following a meeting. They will be unconfirmed and confirmed at the next meeting, but we do intend to make sure that there is timely addition to the website of minutes.
Just remember also that many of your ratepayers do not have a computer.
Appreciate that. So at our community centres there are copies available for anyone that wants to see them.
We'll just make sure that Tan's is well supplied then, and then you'll get a bit of peace and quiet from me.
I won't comment on that, Mr. Payton. Thank you. Just noting that Councillors Young and Councillor Jennings have joined the table. Welcome. So we've had our one public participation. Are there any late items? No. There are some slight amendments to some of the recommendations which you'll see when we get to those agenda items. Declarations of interest. Just reminding councillors that this is the opportunity to declare whether you have any interest in any agenda items, and there will be a sign to fill out if you do, so that it is recorded. Today's meeting obviously is reasonably procedural, and we all have, I suppose, some degree of conflict of interest in what we're about to sign off today, but as there is an equal conflict, then there is no issue with that. Can I just advise, especially new councillors, if there is a suggestion that you may even have a perception of a conflict, then seek some advice either from myself or the Chief Executive in terms of that. And it's easy to note perceptions of conflict of interest as well as actual conflicts of interest at the same time. But this is the time of the meeting when we would do that. So now we now move to item number 5, which is the confirmation of the minutes of our meeting held on the 26th of October 2022. Recommendation is that the minutes meeting minutes of Council 26 October 2022 be accepted as a true and correct record. I'll move. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Brannigan. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so we now move to our first report, which is 6.1 on page number 7, the adoption of standing orders. And I will ask the Chief Executive to introduce this item, please.
Good morning, thank you, Your Worship and Councillors. Look, the purpose of this report is for you to consider the adoption of your standing orders. Standing orders is a requirement under the Local Government Act, and as you've already heard from Mrs. Payton this morning, they're a critical document that will help guide this table and our council for the next 3 years. The report takes you through the key changes to the standing orders that we're proposing that are different to the current standing orders, and the reason for that change is a result of guidance and advice from Local Government New Zealand as a result of a look into best practice around councils across New Zealand, advice from the Office of the Auditor General and Local Government New Zealand itself. I will take the report as read, but if I could just offer to the table a couple of slight amendments. So referring you to the top of page 8, you'll see the final recommendation there doesn't have a number, so that should be 3.7. So that's the recommendation around council implementing a public forum prior to the start of each council meeting, as well as the continued provision of public participation. But want to reference that within the report, we have advised the council that the proposed standing orders as officers that we're recommending includes a right for the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board to have speaking rights at council meetings and be accorded the same courtesies as provided for any non-appointed member of a meeting. And just note that the resolutions don't actually specifically speak to that. Soon you'll see up on the screen an additional recommendation that I would like the table to consider, and so that would become recommendation 3.8, and that is that council adds to standing order 13.1 that Te Awaho Foxton Community Board to have speaking rights at council meetings and be accorded the same courtesies as provided for any non-appointed member of a meeting, and also recommends to the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board that a similar clause is included in their standing orders. And so what that means is that the same right that you would offer Te Awaho Foxton Community Board members is hopefully the same right that Te Awaho Foxton Community Board will provide back to councillors. Your Worship, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any councillors have any questions, need clarification on any item? Councillor Tukapua.
Yeah, just clarification on the Foxton Community Board member, assuming the chair used to sit at the table at the beginning. Will they have a slot now formally in the agenda, as opposed like the procedural stuff? And likewise with it yourself at their meeting.
Yeah, so look, part of the rationale behind this, Councillor Tukapua, is both in kind of the initial induction and training conversations with Te Awaho Community Board, but also in recognising the limitations of our representation review in who we can appoint to the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board as the councillor representative. What we've heard from councillors is that there is broader interest in the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board, and so trying to I suppose look for ways in which the standing orders can build that relationship, and so it's less of a seeking permission and not. So at the moment, for example, His Worship the Mayor doesn't have in the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board standing orders any provisions or rights to speak or be there, and so it's trying to give what Te Awaho Foxton Community Board would like around this table, give councillors that back at the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board.
I've only got one other question regarding these recommendations, and that's about the 3.7 and the public forum. Will that also be live streamed, or that's offline and then live stream still starts at 1?
Yes. We have made the assumption that it will be live streamed because it will be in here. It won't be in the foyer. So, yes. And in regards to the Foxton Community Board having presence, I would hope in future that there is actually a report included in the agenda rather than just being a verbal report given to us at the time of the meeting. That there is, something a bit more substantial than what we've received in the past. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, so let's move to the first of our recommendations. And for new councillors, while this may seem relatively minor, we do have to follow the legal requirements of the Local Government Act, and that's why you will see 3.1 and 3.2 that the report is received and that this matter or decision is recognised as not significant in terms of Section 76 of the Local Government Act. So you will see that in all reports being received. So generally I will put that first while we're introducing the topic so we can clear that procedural matter out of the way. So I will move 3.1, 3.2. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen. We'll get used to that eventually. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we now move to 3.3, that we have either or here, of course. Now the Council adopt Horowhenua District Council standing orders tikanga whakahaere hui 2022 to 2025, or the Council adopt Horowhenua District Council standing orders tikanga whakahaere hui 2022-2025, including the following options. So basically what we're saying there is that if there's no need to go into further discussion or talk around some of the options, then we would accept the standing orders as they are written, or in which I am recommending we do go through these item by item, so to give every councillor an idea of what these mean and what's included in those different. So I will move 3.3b, if that's all right with meeting secretary. That we at this stage only accept them with the following options, but do we actually need to move that? Why don't we just move to 3.4? Yep. So 3.4, Council maintain the default option of that the Mayor or Chairperson or any other person presiding at a meeting is a deliberative vote, and in the case of an equality of votes has a casting vote, or that Council adopt the option that the Mayor or Chairperson or any other person presiding at a meeting only has a deliberative vote, and that in the event of an equality of votes for any question, that question would be lost. Noting that the current default is that the Mayor or Chairperson does not have a further casting vote, and I'm quite comfortable to continue in that space. I don't believe that I should have a casting vote, especially when there's 13 at the table. If one's missing and it's 6 all, obviously there's no consensus in terms of how that vote should go, and so I don't want to have the and it has hardly ever happened. I think there's once in the last term where it happened. So I will move 3.4b, that we that in the event of an equality of votes, the motion would be lost. And I have a seconder, Councillor Brannigan. Any questions or comments?
I was just going to second you, but yeah, I support your point around making decisions without, like, for me as a potential chair, this term for a committee, I'd rather not add a division point, but rather have a majority. And you know, if a question is lost, you can always move an amendment, and then it helps people decide.
Quite right. And if there is a topic that is there is division on the table, then obviously we need to go and leave it on the table and go away and have some further discussions and debate about it. Okay, so I'll now put that motion 3.4b. The council adopt the option that the mayor or chairperson or any other person presiding at a meeting only has a deliberative vote, and that in the event of an equality of votes for any question, that question would be lost. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now move to 3.5, where we have the council adopt system A for standing order 5.6, which is the voting system for chairs, deputy mayor and committee chairs, or we go for system B. System A being obviously different, that there is a number of votes to ensure that provides that a candidate is elected if they receive the votes of the majority of all the members who are present and voting. In this system, there is first round of voting for all candidates. If no candidate receives a majority of votes, then the lowest polling candidate is removed from the second round of voting. This continues until one candidate receives a majority of votes. Or system B provides that a candidate is elected if they receive more votes than any other candidate. There is only one round of voting. Again, this is purely procedural. I don't think it's ever happened either in my time.
It happened once last training.
Yeah, it did happen once last training. Okay. Any comments, questions around that? Currently, it is option B or system B that we currently use, and quite comfortable for that to continue. So I'll move Deputy Mayor Allen as seconding. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Now move to 3.6, which is slightly more involved. The council adopt option A, general procedures for speaking and moving motions, option B, or option C. And might actually pay for the chief executive to quickly explain the difference between what those options are.
Through you, your worship. So I'm referring you to page 9 and 10 of your agenda, and would also just remind you about the video that you watched during the induction, which I'm sure Mrs. Payton is pleased to hear, specifically about standing orders. So, like, I could read through it line by line, or the best way I can describe it is that there is a continuum, and A is strict, C is very flexible, and A, B, the further down the alphabet you get, the more flexible you are about engaging and encouraging debate and discussion. We are currently option B, and option C is obviously a new option that has come in May of 2021, and certainly option B or option C tends to probably more align with the culture of the tradition and the culture of this council chamber. I'm happy to explain in more detail, but I think the best thing is to understand that if you want to be really strict about debate, then you go with option A. If you want to be a bit more flexible and enabling conversation, it's option C.
Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, I'm happy to move option C. I think for a number of reasons. I think back to the landfill debate earlier this year, where we had struggled through that debate to get the outcome we're all looking for, because we're hampered somewhat by standing orders. I've referred to the video we watched recently from Mike Reid, the LGNZ, we talked about the ability with option C for full debate and participation. And I think with the makeup of this council, the amount of people around the table, I think option C would serve us well. It allows for that debate without, and while still staying within the bounds of structure of standing orders, allows for the debate to be full and everyone to participate freely. So for those reasons, I prefer option C.
Can I have a second of it? So Councillor Jennings is seconding that. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I think it's important, as Councillor Brannigan identifies, that we do, especially in these early days of this triennium, try to be as reasonably flexible as we can. We don't want to stifle people's contribution to the table. Notwithstanding that, the reality is that we do have 13 councillors around this table at times, so there will be occasions where the significance of the agenda item will probably drive the amount of conversation and debate that is. There will be times like the landfill, typically where every councillor should have the opportunity to state their opinions and views on that. However, if it's the colour of we're painting of the fence at some new park, then I doubt whether I'll allow 13 members to speak have their opinions on that. So, are there any other views or none? Okay, so I'll put the motion. Sorry,
just to write a reply to this. This is Nathan speaking. I just want to support that because I think it will require strong chairmanship, Your Worship.
Thanks for that challenge, Councillor Brannigan. I appreciate that. I might be delegating some parts of the meeting if you're not careful. Okay, so we have then recommendation 3.6 that Council adopt option C, general procedures for speaking and moving motions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, so now we move to 3.7. That Council implement a public forum starting 40 minutes prior to the start of each Council meeting and continuing for up to 30 minutes, where members of the public can raise directly with the Mayor and Councillors any matters that are of concern to them. This is in addition to public participation, which is provided for in Standing Order 15. I'll move. Councillor Jennings is happy to second that. Any further discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And now 3.8, which, as the Chief Executive explained before, is the proposed standing orders have included a right for the Te Awaho Foxton. Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong one. The Council adds to Standing Order 13.1 that the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board to have speaking rights at Council meetings and be accorded the same courtesies as provided for any non-appointed member of a meeting, and recommends to the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board that a similar clause is included in their standing orders to provide the same rights for councils. Otherwise it might be misinterpreted that they have the rights and not us. To provide the same rights to the Mayor and councillors. Thank you. Any discussion on that? All comfortable with that? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. I moved it. Councillor Allen seconded it. All right, so that's all those items under standing orders. So is everyone comfortable with the standing orders as we have put them? Any further discussion? Councillor Boyle.
I've got a proposed amendment to the standing orders that I'd like tabled. Standing order 4.3 on language stipulates a 2-day notice period for speaking Te Reo or sign language. I'd like those final 2 paragraphs removed for that.
So can we just have a substantive motion that you wish to put, or an amendment, so that Grayson can.
So what's the standing order?
So the standing order 4.3, I'd prefer to be amended to remove the final 2 paragraphs. So it simply reads: a member may address the meeting in English, Te Reo, or New Zealand Sign Language. The chairperson may require the speech is translated or printed in English or Te Reo Māori.
So I'm just going to ask the Chief Executive to explain why it reads as it does currently.
Thank you, Worship. So I think the original intent of these 2 paragraphs was to ensure that everyone around the table had the opportunity to have translation services available so that they could understand and interpret what was being said to assist them in the decision-making process. Depending on kind of the will of the table on Councillor Boyle's suggestion, I'm happy to offer up a potential resolution for Council to debate. And the only advice I'd offer to the table is that I think if Council want to delete those 2 paragraphs, which makes sense, that it's done with the spirit of understanding that when people are going to use Te Reo Māori or sign language, that we make sure that there is that is explained to everyone around the table about what has been said. But I think it can be a understood thing. It doesn't need to be written into standing orders as it currently is, really formal around translation.
So first question is, Councillor Boyle has made an amendment. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Barker. Thank you. So the motion or the recommendation is now on the table. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, just so I can be clear, I understand the reasoning around the motion, but to be clear, what you're intending, CE, is we're taking away from a formal part of standing orders to perhaps the will of the chair, or how will it go? Because while I'd love to be fully conversant in Te Reo, to speak and to listen, I'm not. There's a lot of people around the table won't be. I just want to ensure that there are some safeguards around that in our position as elected members, we understand what is being said to us. I'm just a little bit confused about how that would go. Is it a gentleman's agreement, or what is the unintended consequences? This is what I'm asking.
Thank you, Councillor Brannigan, and through you, Your Worship. So I think what Councillor Boyle is suggesting is that we take the 2 paragraphs out, because if we think about the practical reality of a councillor needing to go to his worship and seek permission 2 days before the meeting to speak Te Reo at the meeting, it's not really how we've operated. So in fact, actually, it probably hasn't aligned with the way that we've been working. And what this suggests is that, sure, any member can address council in English, Te Reo Māori or New Zealand Sign Language. But the second sentence does say a chairperson, so whether that be the mayor or a chair of committee, may require that speech be translated and printed in English or Te Reo Māori. So hypothetically, what that could look like is a councillor speaking Te Reo Māori, and the mayor may request that councillor please explain to the whole table so that everyone can understand. It's just taking out some of that formalities around must seek permission to speak one of our official languages of New Zealand.
Councillor Barker.
I think it's important that everyone gets a chance to be heard, and certainly in whatever language or way or manner that they need to communicate. My concern would be that the problems that may arise in terms of translation or how that works out in actual practicality. I just think it's important that everyone gets a chance to be heard, but I'm not convinced that that actually is going to achieve that in practicality. So that's why I supported the motion.
Councillor Allen.
Look, I do have worries about this. My concern is that there will be very significant issues debated at this table, and we need to ensure that there is full inclusion when we are listening to and deliberating on those matters at hand. The wording, I'm comfortable with the wording at the moment because it does use the may word. It says that a chairperson, including you, the mayor, may require that it's translated or printed. There's the opportunity, whether or not we talk about the 2 days prior notice or whatever, I think it's essential that standing orders reflect that there is the ability to restate the message in English as well, so that we are all included in the conversation. So whether we amend the wording around the number of business days, or whether we simply say to the speaker in te reo or in sign language, look, this is an important matter, could you also please deliver that message in English? That would be for me the sweet spot, because front of mind for me is about inclusion.
Just wondering, Deputy Mayor Allen, I mean, as the Chief Executive explained, that there would be, I think, in terms of, again, it would be the significance of the debate and issue that we're contemplating that may dictate in terms of what is said. I mean, often we say, especially those speaking in Te Reo Māori, there is often an introduction which we get the understanding of without necessarily knowing what they're talking about. It's the substantive views and opinions that obviously we would need to be. And I think my personal view is that taking this out of that gives us the flexibility to be able to do that at times. And I think it's asking a little. I don't like the fact that someone has to tell me 2 days before a meeting is going to be held that they wish to speak in Te Reo. I think we should, as you say, they should feel comfortable to be able to say how they want to say that at a meeting, yet understanding that they will probably be asked to explain what they've said. Councillor Tukupu.
Yeah, I guess just a comment really, and that is, as someone who's used Te Reo Māori around the table, and I can do a bit of sign language too, it's to your advantage, members, to make sure that your fellow councillors know what you're saying, because in a debate, it's at that point you can potentially, because we come not predetermined, you can move people, influence people, and if they don't understand what you're saying, then you may not achieve that. So the only other point is it can be quite a beautiful thing to obviously share, translate, and even when we have public address us and they express themselves, obviously they too want us to understand, and 9 times out of 10 they will translate. It can be really powerful. So, yeah.
Councillor Boyle, it's the mover of the recommendation. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, just for clarification on the number of issues raised, I think the proposed amendment doesn't actually affect anything terribly much. All it does is remove the 2-day requirement that most definitely has been breached in the past and will be breached again if it stands. It's more of a fact of removing, it's literally removing the 2 working days notice to the chair. There is no substantive change to the outcome of the meeting or what is going to occur. Bernie's most likely to say yes if he's told 2 days beforehand. It's just removing that fact.
Thank you. So the Chief Executive has a recommendation or suggestion of how we could improve that 4.3.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just listening to the elected members' views around the table, an option, rather than deleting in full those bottom 2 paragraphs, you could definitely delete the 3rd paragraph, and the 2nd paragraph could read, if a member intends to address the meeting in New Zealand Sign Language or in Te Reo Māori, it is expected that the member provides appropriate translation, full stop. So it kind of strengthens the 1st paragraph, which talks about the chair requiring a translation, and it puts a little bit more onus back on the member to provide that translation to other members. But to your point, Councillor Boyle, ensures that all reference to 2 working days is deleted.
So just asking Councillor Boyle and Councillor Barker as the movers and seconders of that recommendation. Are you comfortable, happy with the addition of those words?
Yeah, mostly comfortable with that. It does put some onus on the member to provide that translation as opposed to council being able to facilitate that, but I'm comfortable with that as it stands with the members we have at the table.
Councillor Barker, thank you. All right, so the motion or recommendation is on the table and reads that the final paragraph of Standing Orders 4.3 be removed from the draft Standing Orders, and the 2nd paragraph be amended to read, if a member intends to address the meeting in Te Reo Māori or New Zealand Sign Language, it is expected that a translation will be provided. Any further debate or discussion on that? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, sorry.
Can we amend it to can be provided instead of will be provided? Or could be provided? Just to be nitpicky. This infers that the translation must be available and will be provided every time.
May. I think we use the same word as in the first sentence of that 4.3, which says a chairperson may require that the speech be translated. So I would be comfortable that is it expected that a translation may be provided. Same word. Changes the intent. May be required.
I think it's a black and white.
Councillor Barker, sorry. Well, Councillor Barker, just when you do speak, people that are watching this probably won't hear you if you are sitting well back. Do either bring your mic back towards you or speak into it. Thank you.
Okay, how's that? Okay, so I think it's a black and white thing. I don't think it needs to be wishy-washy, to be honest. I mean, it's either provide a translation or not. You know, may or will or whatever. I think it just needs to be a thing. You know, that's my view.
In all honesty, I can't see what the 2nd paragraph adds to the discussion. As it stands at the moment, the first paragraph, I think, covers the will of the table as I read it at the moment. The 2nd one, in fact, is sort of contradictory, using words like expect alongside words like may counter each other and render it unhelpful. So my personal preference is that the first paragraph sitting under 4.3 be the substantive motion.
So, the first question is to Councillor Boyle then. Do you wish to now amend that or support Councillor Allen's amendment?
Can we put forward just the first paragraph to be voted on?
Okay.
And move on from there.
So we then therefore will remove. Okay. So we do have a mover and a seconder that we now amend this recommendation so that only the first paragraph of 4.3 remain. So I have a mover in Councillor Allen, seconded Councillor Boyle. Any discussion?
So, Mr. Yeah. Miss, yeah.
All right. So you can understand how the procedure of this sometimes can be quite difficult, and standing orders needs to be flexible in terms of how we do things. So what I'm going to ask now is that Councillor Boyle and Councillor Barker, who were the initial movers and seconders of that recommendation, that the final paragraph of Standing Order 4.3 be removed from the draft standing orders, and that the second paragraph be amended to read, if a member intends to address a meeting in Te Reo Maori or New Zealand Sign Language, it is expected that a translation may be required. I'm now going to ask whether you want to remove that recommendation and we actually go back to the amendment that Councillor Allen provided.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to remove that, and if we can go with the initially proposed amendment or Councillor Allen's version of, yes, removing the final two paragraphs.
Councillor Barker? Thank you. Okay, so that amendment is now removed, and that we're now going back to the original recommendation from Councillor Boyle that the final two paragraphs of 4.3 be removed. So I'm having Councillor Boyle move that, and Councillor Barker, are you happy to second that? Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Appears not. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We got there. So, any further things around standing orders? Councillor Jennings.
Just a question to the Chief Executive. In the current set of standing orders, there is an appendix which relates to workshops, the conduct of workshops, and obviously with the direction around workshops now being public, I just wondered whether you had any advice for us around to the extent to which that appendix was helpful, or that there should be some, and it may be that it can be parked for today and we can come back to it, but it was just something I noticed that appendix previously provided for some structure around how workshops would be conducted, and it sort of firmed up that I guess sort of semi-formal nature of that forum.
Through you, Your Worship, I think my advice to the table is the more recent advice from particularly the Ombudsman's office means that we have changed our approach to the process that precedes a workshop or a briefing. So my advice is I don't think it's required, because I think this is in the spotlight so much in terms of what we're legislatively required to do. If elected members find that it does become a problem, we can always go back to that appendix and look to introduce it back into standing orders.
Okay, we have one final recommendation to, as part of the adoption of standing orders, and that is to go back to 3.3 and move that Council adopt the Horowhenua District Council standing orders tikanga whakahaere hui 2022-2025, including the adopted options as we have previously done. So I'll move Councillor Deputy Mayor Allen is seconding. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now move to 6.2, which is the adoption of the Code of Conduct. So I'll move 3.1, 3.2, that the Code of Conduct report be received and its matter is recognised as not significant. Seconded by Councillor Young, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we now have 3.3, that Council adopts the Code of Conduct 2022-2025. And so are there any points of clarification or questions around the Code of Conduct? There are, as you see on page 91 under options 6.1, that we have 6.2, 6.3 or 6.4, 3 different options there. Recommendation is that we adopt option 1, which is adopting the proposed Code of Conduct 2022-2025 is set out in Appendix 1 without change as recommended to Council. Councillor Tukapu.
Yeah, it's kind of a question, sort of around social media and our engagement with that. I guess that's probably the one thing in this that where I nearly got myself into trouble. But I mean, obviously, I didn't end up under investigation or anything. I wasn't that serious. I just corrected myself. But you know that from time to time that can be quite tricky. So will we get some sort of, and even after being like media training, or a bit more, like even you can do it via workshop if you like, but it doesn't have to be long, but so kind of just so we can flesh some of that out. Because yeah, you do get it wrong.
Through you, Your Worship, the answer to that is yes, Councillor Tukapoa. And look, I think the really important thing for elected members to keep in mind here is often it's about the intent. So yeah, of course, some things might get said at times where it might, on the face of it, be a breach of the Code of Conduct, but sometimes it's about having the conversation before, which sounds like what took place, rather than getting into the depths of the process that the Code of Conduct allows in terms of disciplinary or an independent investigation into a member's conduct.
I think it should also be emphasised that the Code of Conduct can be a bit like, the rules and regulations, but really the reality is that there's not a heck of a lot that is as a consequence of, if you like, going against the Code of Conduct. It's more around the expectations of us as elected members of how we are going to behave. There certainly is not the police type attitude, or even a Speaker of the House type attitude in terms of the way we deal with it. But I would just hope that, we do have some boundaries and limits that we need to try and adhere to, and that's all the purpose of the Code of Conduct, is so that we do set those out so the public are well aware of how our behaviour should be. So noting that, I'll go back to recommendation 3.3. Sorry. Councillor Brannigan.
I just happen to move option 1, if we're at that point.
So 3.3, option 1, that the council adopts the Code of Conduct 2022-2025 as set out in Appendix 1 without change. I don't think we even need the other bit as recommended to council. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Olsen, thank you. Any further debate or discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And then 3.4, that council recommends the Code of Conduct 2022 to 2025 to the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board for adoption. Just a process. Do they have a separate Code of Conduct from ours? Yeah, they do. Okay.
And through you, Your Worship, they will consider that at their meeting on Monday the 21st of November.
So what we're suggesting for them here is that they follow the same Code of Conduct that we have. Oh, okay. Councillor Tukupa.
Oh, I thought you were moving that. I was seconding it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 6.3, which is the adoption of the committee structure, terms of reference and appointments to committees and external organisations. We're on page 121 for those. So I'll just move first of all that the report be received and that this matter 3.2 recognises not significant. Councillor Boyle seconding. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now have 3.3 that the council notes the mayor's intention to establish the following committee structure and the powers pursuant to section 41A of the Local Government Act 2002, Amendment Act 2012. Risk and Assurance Committee, Community Wellbeing Committee, Hearings and Regulatory Committee, Chief Executive Employment and Performance Committee, Community Funding and Recognition Committee. And we will do these as separate recommendations. So I'll move this first one. Could I have a second? Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Well, sorry, I should ask if there's any questions. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we'll put 3.4 and 3.5 together. The council notes that the District Licensing Committee is established under Section 186 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. The council appoints Councillor Brannigan as Chair, Councillor Tamihana as Deputy Chair of the District Licensing Committee under Sections 189.2 and 189.3 respectively of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. Moved by Councillor Jennings, seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. The council notes the committee structure as outlined in Appendix A of this report pursuant to His Worship the Mayor's powers. In fact, we'll move 3.6 and 3.7 together as well. So 3.7, the council adopts the appointments of chair, deputy chair and members of all committees as outlined in Appendix B of this report. Moved by Councillor Brannigan, seconded by Councillor Olsen. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now 3.8, the council appoints Kerry Ward, Councillor Allen or Brannigan to the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board. Councillor Brannigan.
Yeah, I would like to nominate Councillor Allen for that role.
Yeah. Okay.
Apologies, Deputy Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Tamihana. Sure, there's not a further a motion to that?
I can speak to that if you wish.
I would like you to speak to that, Councillor Brilliant. Thank you.
Listen, Councillor Allen, Deputy Mayor Allen and I have discussed this at length, and believe in the circumstances that Deputy Mayor Allen is well suited to be part of the community board as the official appointee to the community board, and I will give himself and the community board all my support to that role.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And 3.9, the council notes that any elected member is welcome to attend the Te Awaho Foxton Community Board and with the permission of its chair may have speaking rights during the meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Tauiana. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now move to 3.10 and we do have a slight amendment to these terms of reference and delegations. And yes, please, I'll ask Chief Executive to introduce those. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, elected members, since the publication of the agenda, just a couple of matters have come up that do require minor amendments to the proposed terms of reference. So the first, and you will start seeing on the screen there, is just a change to some of the titles of the grants. It just hadn't pulled through some of the more current names of those grants, and so you'll see there those grants read the Community Development Grant, the Community and Social Services Grant, the Special Projects Grant, the Rural Halls Grant, and the Vibrant Communities Grant. The other change, Your Worship, is in relation to the next resolution. So I will leave that as that. Happy to provide advice if there are any other minor amendments, though, required to the terms of reference.
Has anyone got any further concerns around the terms of reference?
Terms of reference.
Councillor Tukapua.
Thank you, Mayor Bernie. 2.2 Community Funding and Recognition Committee on page 135. There's A and B, but I'm going to propose a C, and that would be that this committee is delegated to approve the applications or applicants for those grants, I guess without. See, I'm not very good at explaining it. I know what I mean. I'll let Deputy Mayor Allen explain.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Tukapua and I did discuss this before the meeting. It's with reference to B, sitting on page 135. At this stage, the terms of reference say to make recommendations to Council for endorsement of funding allocations to specific applicants. So in substance, that means that the committee itself cannot actually do the business of making those allocations without the endorsement of the full council. The reality is, though, that council is a rubber stamp in this matter because council doesn't have access to the wealth of information that's provided to the committee in their deliberations. So to me, it's fairly similar, and I think, Councillor Tukapua and myself, it's fairly similar to the hearings committee, where council will still retain the right to refer back matters to the committee if they're not happy with the funding allocations, but the decision making sits within the committee because it's the committee that has the full information available to it. So with that in mind, and I'm sorry to Grayson, it's a little bit wordy, but could I move in place of B that the words be to determine under delegation the allocation of funding to specified applicants and report those allocations to council. to determine under delegation the allocation of funding to specified applicants and report these allocations to Council. Now, I hope that wording's suitable as long as it's understood Council does then have the right to refer matters back if it's not comfortable with it. Councillor Jennings may be able to help me here. To determine under delegation the allocation of funding to specified applicants and report these allocations to Council. To Council. Yeah.
We could simplify it. You can.
Okay.
Simplified version to report to Council the funding allocations to specified applicants. It's effectively the same, just
I've typed this one out.
yeah.
You've seen how fortunate my time.
So, well, do you want, unless there's any other speakers, I can.
No, please, yes.
Yes. So, as Deputy Mayor Allen outlined, it's about we're the ones that receive those applications and go through all the detail and make that challenging decision around who's successful and who's not, and that information in depth does not come to full council, and so without other councillors' knowledge, it's really, unfair for them to be able to, oppose it or challenge it. So that is the reason for bringing forward the delegation as opposed to the recommendation, and yeah, I guess it's much better that way.
Just noting as Deputy Mayor Allen said, if there is any challenge to any grants allocation made by the committee, it can still be referred back to the committee for any reason when, if councillors wish to do so. So there is still that option. But what's been said is quite correct. It seems over the top that the committee make the decisions and then have to come to council to have it signed off, which doesn't seem right. Okay, so we now have 3.10, that council adopts the terms of reference and delegations for these committees as outlined in Appendix C of this report, noting the change for the Community Funding and Recognition Committee terms of reference that on page 135 be amended to read to determine under delegation the allocation of funding to specified applicants and report those allocations back to council. Councillor Jennings.
Mr. Mayor, can I just speak briefly to the terms of reference for the Risk and Assurance Committee, just to provide some assurance to colleagues around following the conclusion of the term last triennium, the chair of that committee provided, the chair and the other independent member provided a number of recommendations, and just to provide some assurance that a number of the recommendations in that assessment did into the terms of reference, and I think that's really pleasing to see in terms of a sort of a tighter, more focused scope for that committee. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you. So the motion's on the table. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We now have 3.11, that Council adopts the appointments to statutory bodies, community groups and associations outlined in Appendix D, noting that there is a slight change to the name of one of those groups. It was in the agenda on page 144 as the Horowhenua Crime Prevention Camera Trust. Their name, as we've been advised, is now the Horowhenua Community Camera Trust. So just a slight alteration in the naming of that. So noting that alteration, I'll put the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Olsen. All those in favour? This is 3.11.
Well, it's an addition, Mr. Mayor. It's an addition that Foxton Futures does not sit currently in the appointments process, and I would like to move that it be included and that Councillor's appointment be Councillor Tamihana.
So no, that wasn't there. So let's add 3.11 A or B or 1.
That's
Foxton Futures. That the appointment to the Foxton Futures, what do they call it? Group? Or to Foxton Futures.
Just to note, Mr. Mayor, that traditionally Foxton Futures has sat in this document and that Council has had an appointee on that group. It was Councillor Brannigan in the past, so we're simply reinstating that position, and Councillor Tamihana and I have spoken. He currently is a representative on sort, the principle being that that person can bring a coordinating role by being represented on both bodies. So that's the background to it.
And just noting for the rest of the councillors that the Deputy Mayor had broached the subject with me beforehand. So, okay, so 3.1 now reads that Council adopts the appointments to statutory bodies, community groups and associations as outlined in Appendix D of this report, noting the change in the name from Horowhenua Crime Prevention Trust to Horowhenua Camera Trust, and that the appointment to the Foxton Futures Governance Group be Councillor Tamihana, and this is included in the appointments.
just need to check the name of the trust.
Horowhenua Community Camera Trust. Is that correct, Mr. Melton? Thank you. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Sorry.
I'm not sure that this is an addition. It's more of a question of clarification, and that is Foxton Futures was missed. There's obviously from time to time other groups that will, and you had an appointment with the climate change. I don't know if that was in Horizons, but for the new councillors, there's the LG&Z forums like rural and provincial and zone meetings, and I think, I'm not sure it's by default that the Deputy Mayor usually goes with the Mayor, but there are times when if it's in a neighbouring district like Palmerston North City, the invitation is then opened up. Whoever wants to go can go. So in those instances, what is it going to be? And I mean, this can come back later, of course, but like that climate change one, we are going to be potentially invited as a formal member to that regional waste forum, and so throughout the year they come through your reports for adoption. Okay.
So through you, Your Worship, so as opportunities come, we'll bring a report to Council, and Council will make that decision on who is appointed to things. The climate action one, for example, we're just waiting for confirmation from Regional Council because they're doing some rethinking about that. I think His Worship the Mayor has already referenced in his most recent email to councillors that for the likes of Rural Provincial and Zone 3, he's really keen to put a roster in place so that all elected members can attend throughout the terraneum. But we're not going to directly, this is like a formal document that I think probably to Councillor Allen's point, it gets created at the start of a term and it evolves as things, and we just need to make sure that it's a living document that we continue to update.
Thank you. So that motion's on the table. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And that is all in regard to the committee structure and appointments. Thank you. So now moving to 6.4. The recruitment of independent members to council committees. So this is to obtain council's agreement to undertake recruitment of suitable candidates for appointment as independent members of council committees. I'll move 3.1, 3.2 that a report be received, and seconded Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So 3.3, the council asks the Chief Executive in consultation with the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and the Chair of the Risk and Assurance Committee to facilitate a recruitment process to identify suitable candidates for appointment as independent members to its committees. I'll just ask the Chief Executive to maybe explain the reasoning behind independent members and which committees they particularly are involved in.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the reason for independent members follows significant advice and direction from the Office of the Auditor General. And it's not to say that our elected members don't have the skills and experience, it's to add an additional check and balance to particularly those parts of council business that have higher risk associated with it, hence why an independent member is proposed. 2 independent members are proposed for the Risk and Assurance Committee, and the idea being that one of those independent members will also sit on the capital projects, the delivery of capital projects steering group. It's probably worth noting that this will be the first time that council have publicly gone out for expressions of interest. This has typically been a process that has been dealt with based on people known in the sector that do this work for local government. But certainly my advice to the table is I think it is good practice for us to go out for expressions of interest, test the market per se, and in particular to test not just those who do this work across local government, but particularly those people maybe in this district that may be able to offer skills and experience to those roles. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Jennings.
Just to clarify with the Chief Executive, is that there's an intention to do a skills sort of assessment or matrix around the existing members so that we can identify particular skills needs that might come through an expression of interest process? Is that? Can you just confirm that?
Through you, Your Worship, yes. So the intention is that obviously following this meeting where committees have now been agreed to by Council, in particular we'll do a skills matrix of the Risk and Assurance Committee and also seek some advice from Councillor Brennigan as Chair of the Capital Projects Delivery Steering Group to ensure that when we are seeking expressions of interest and when the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Chair of Risk and Assurance are doing those interviews, and then when they're thinking about bringing back a recommendation to this table, they are really thinking about, well, what are the skills that we might need to strengthen from existing members of the committees.
No further discussion or clarification needed. Okay, so I will put 3.3 and 3.4 together. So 3.4, the Council asks Chief Executive to bring a report of shortlisted candidates for appointment to Council for consideration no later than 1 February 2023. Seconded by Councillor Jennings. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now moving to 6.5, adoption of our meeting schedule. To seek Council's approval of proposed meeting schedule of Council and its committees for the period from 17 November 2022 to the 31st of December 2023. The recommendation 3.1, 3.2, that this report be received and recognised as not significant. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Allen. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we have 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 and 3.6. The Council notes the following meeting dates for the remainder of 2022. Council is 1 p.m. Wednesday the 23rd of November, and Council will first 1 p.m. the Wednesday the 14th of December. Council adopts a schedule of meetings for the committees of Council for the period January to December 2023 based on the 12-week cycle as set out in Appendix A. The Council notes that additional ordinary, extraordinary and multi-day meetings may be scheduled from time to time in consultation with the Mayor and Chief Executive, and that Council notes that meeting times for other committees and subcommittees will be formally notified when they are required in accordance with the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 and Local Government Act 2002. So just prefacing that, obviously the intention is to try and keep to the work program as closely as we have outlined in your agenda, but obviously with the workload that is in front of us over the next 12 to 14 months, there may well be a requirement to either alter or extend or add to those meeting times. We do need to be flexible in terms of how we approach this, and so while with the best of intentions we'll try and keep to this, just warning you that there will be times when additional meetings will be required. Any questions around? Councillor Jennings.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I had foreshadowed by email correspondence that I personally had some constraints around some meeting dates in May for the Risk and Assurance Committee and also the Chief Executive Employment and Performance Committee, that date being the 24th of May. So the solution I was putting on the table was either to potentially move those dates to the 31st of May or just to foreshadow that for the purposes of the Risk and Assurance Committee, Councillor Olsen, who's the Deputy Chair of the Risk and Assurance Committee, would need to chair the 24th of May meeting, given my intended absence.
With the leave of the table, I think Councillor Jennings' suggestion, noting that it was 8 months or 7 months away, I'm thinking that we can change the date of that meeting to the 31st without too much issue, and noting that May is a very busy time anyway, that you'll still be recovering from deliberations and hearings from long-term employment submissions, so if you've got an extra week to do that, it will probably be in your best interest anyway. So noting that amendment, that we will move the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting till the 31st of May. Move and block.
A second.
So moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Tukapua. Any further talk or discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we move to 6.6 on page 157, which is confirmation of elected member remuneration. We have recommendation 3.1, 3.2, the report be received and recognised as not significant. Moved by Deputy Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Boyle. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Noting that this we now will be sending to the Remuneration Authority how we have divided our pool. The pool must be allocated, so we don't have a choice in terms of the total amount that is to be allocated. It is just how we divvy it up as to how that, and following the email that I sent to you all regarding that, there was no councillors that had any objection to the determination. So are there any questions or clarifications sought on this? I know it's difficult deciding your own remuneration, but that's what the law says we have to do. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Sorry, I'll move. Deputy Mayor Allen is seconding. And we're moving 3.3 and 3.4. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Last item of business is 7.1 Council Forward Work Programme. So this is just to note, so I'll just move 2.1, 2.2 that have been received, seconded by Councillor Jennings. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. The Chief Executive may wish to add some comments to this item.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the intent of this report is a standing item to ensure not just as elected members but also our community have a sense of what's coming up in the next few meetings. Councillors will note, of course, that the meeting for next Wednesday, the 23rd of November, the agenda was released yesterday evening, and items on that agenda reference the future of the Levin landfill decision around the long-term plan process, the resurfacing of the Donnelly Park netball courts, a request for advance funding of the Horowhenua Sports Turf Trust, financial decisions paper in relation to the capital work required around the fluoridation of Levin's water supply, the organisation performance report, the mural report, council resolution monitoring report, and our council forward work programme, and 3 in committee items being the Levin Adventure Park lease, a procurement plan around a reticulation renewal, and the extension of the Horowhenua Alliance contract. I would note and reference your work programme. Typically we would have the long-term plan monitoring report also on that agenda. That is not on the agenda. I removed that report as it requires additional work. So we'll be bringing that report to the 14th of December council meeting alongside 2 key decision items, one being the remediation and restoration of the old dump funding, and a decision item around the Oxford Street plane trees, and a potential decision around notifying the removal of some of those trees. Happy to answer any questions about the forward work programme.
There's enough items on there, I'm sure, that will keep you a lot more engaged, and should I say, there should be some robust discussions next week when we meet again. So that brings our meeting to an end. Thank you all, thank you staff, thank you members of the public that are here and those watching online. Could I ask Councillor Tuapua to close our meeting, please?
Kia tau ki a tātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua me te whiwhina tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ki a ke āmine.
Āmene.